Hey everybody, Coach William here, and we are back with our nutrition lesson, lesson 3. Today we're going to be learning about facts and nutritional facts. Facts and facts. That's fun. Okay, so what are fats? Fats are used to store energy and protect the organs. So when we think of fat, we typically think of um, our body. Like that's the first thing that people think of. Like it's fair, but also like it's more than just that. So when we're thinking of fats, it's thinking of it as a nutrient. It is a macronutrient that is essential for our body to have. So let's stop being a dick to fat and be like, hey, fat, you're good and you're going to help me do great things. So how do fats work? Basically, they're stored in the body and they act like an energy reserve. So let's get down a rabbit hole real quick. When we're training, depending on the intensity and the duration, there is a point where your body will tap into fat reserves and use that as fuel. Typically, your body will take in uh, glycogen and glucose, which is more of like the carbohydrates that is stored more in the muscle. And it's like, hey, let's use this energy to do this work, right? And that's great and it's sustainable for only a set amount of time. Then you get to a point where your body's like, oh, I'm doing continuous work. Well, maybe instead of going into the muscle and asking for the energy from there, I'm going to go into the fat reserved. And that is energy that's stored in these type of situations. So there, what does that rabbit hole mean? It basically means that if you train right, your body will then use fat that you've stored in your body as fuel in order to produce the work you're trying to create. And what does that lead to? It leads to a leaner body. But we can't get to the leaner body unless we are eating fats. So why are they important? Because they help us absorb nutrients. They keep your organs stay warm because of fat. It helps you store energy. You've already heard my spiel on that. But it also helps you keep full for longer. So again, when we think of fats, there's different fats that we're going to discuss about, but more so just looking at the fats that are healthy. So, where do we get fats? And before we talk about the areas that you can get them from, let's talk about the fats that there are. There are fats that are referred to as um, they are trans fats, and then there are just our other fats, which is our monosaturated, our more cleanlier fats that we're eating. So the trans fats initially are just really bad for us. It's our fry food. It's redefined, and they just aren't as healthy, and they don't produce as quality um, nutrition. Is it to say that they're bad? No, but too much of it is. So being mindful of our fats there. Then when we're looking at our other nutritional fats, so now this is where we get into the healthier fats that are more mono. They're just singular. They're not tran transcended from something else. They're just like, hey, here's peanut butter, here's olives. Like they just have natural fats that are stored in them, and that's how we can get our healthier fats. So from seeds, fish, eggs, avocados. What you're seeing here, there's just so many different areas that you can get your fats from, and it's just again, we just got to be mindful that these are healthy fats and they are good for us. So we're now going to switch over into the nutritional myths. So with the nutritional myths, I feel like there's so many things that we can talk about, and by all means, we'll talk about more. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that I think are important to know because I feel that with nutrition, fat is misunderstood the same way that there's just weird ideas out there regarding nutrition, right? So let's dive in and talk about some myths regarding nutrition and how we can learn some more. All right, diet fads. So diet fads, man, oh man, these get me upset. Here's the thing: all of these diets work, right? But they're not sustainable. meaning they do it at an intensity that is so high that it's almost impossible for you not to lose weight. So, for example, when I was 193 pounds, I was like, wow, I kind of let myself go. I should probably do something about this. And I did. I decided that I would try intermittent fasting, and it worked. And I still use that actually. But it worked for a set amount of period, and then it stopped. The principle itself was great, but the overall effect didn't sustain. The reason being was my body got adapted to it. I didn't I didn't try to learn things as I went along with it. So for me being 193 pounds and losing like my first 5 to 6 pounds was super easy within the first couple weeks of intermittent fasting was because my body was not used to it. I was eating less, and that was the change. So when you look at keto, when you look at South Beach diet, when you look at all these things that you're seeing here, it's not because that they're giving you a principle that, or these hidden secrets, or they're like, yeah, it's a special food and this and that. No, what's actually going on is that you're eating less. You're eating different than you ever have before. So if you're eating McDonald's 7 days a week and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna go on a paleo diet, and you start changing the way you eat, like, yeah, you're gonna lose weight in like 3 weeks, but you're gonna hate yourself and you're not gonna sustain it. And that's the thing is with fad diets is the overall idea here is that they're getting you to eat different, which is the foods that you should be eating it, and they're making you eat less of of, of the food that you're typically eating, and that's it. That's all that shit is. So that's why, in my opinion, I don't like fad diets. Now, are there things that you can take away from them and use? Oh, absolutely. I think that they each have their own key thing that is important. Atkins, I think, just increasing your protein and your fat. I think that's important. The low carb diet sometimes I think it's good on days that you're not as active to just slightly increase your carbohydrate a little bit. Um, so there's different things that you can take from everything. It's just a matter of finding out what works for you and making a change there, but just knowing that the diets will only work for a short period of time and they will not get you long-term results. So if you actually want to take something away and you want to learn how to make the change and get the things that you're looking for, it's just being consistent, and it's going to take time. Okay, so like I said, they work in short term because it's a new stimulus, and again, it's all the things you had said. But here's the thing that we look at is there's a cue, there's a routine, there's a reward. The cue, I was 193 pounds. I didn't like the way I looked. Um, so what did I do? I decided to pick up intermittent fasting. So the cue was intermittent fasting. Well, I decided that I'm not going to eat until 10 a.m. And so then when I got hungry, my routine, I decided that I would start eating at 10. And my reward, I felt good because typically my first meal of the day involves a lot of vegetables. I have a hard time eating vegetables through later in the day. So if I could get them in all at once, it makes it easier, and especially if it's at my peak where I'm like most hungriest, bam, I'm using that to my advantage. So that's initially how they work is that there's a new routine, there's a new cue, there's a new reward, and basically it's just using these things to change how your body's going to work. So what should you do long term? Eat ice cream and vegetables. Like not together or as a way of like, hey, they're gonna do this thing, but like, yes, you should eat vegetables majority of the time. Like at least once a day, if not more. Like I mean, it's not that hard. Um, and you can also eat ice cream, not once a day, but you can have the two. Um, and then there's going to be times where you're going to have to eat less and times where you're going to eat more. It just depends on what's going on in your day. I honestly feel that if you're training or if you're doing something intensive, be mindful of maybe you might need to eat a little bit more. If you're doing something less laborious and less intensive, maybe you don't need as much servings as you think you do. And here are the other things that you can take away. Is just making meal plans. They don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be special. They don't have to be anything. All they have to be is the idea of you knowing where in what direction you're going into. That's it. That's all your meal plans do is they guide you throughout the week of where you're eating, what you're eating, and that's it. It just makes life easy. When you make your own food and you do it often, you know exactly what you're putting in it. You know the ingredients. You can control the portions. You have full control of what's going on when you make your own meals. And that does it. We'll see you in the next session.